Hello all, I'm Anupriya and I am a part of the people team at Lenskart and also helping refresh the culture in the company. Today, I'm in conversation with Mr. Peyush Bansal, who is the CEO and co-founder of Lenskart. And Peyush, we've had many of these intellectual brainstorming conversations about the people and the culture, but we're recording it for the first time to share our thoughts. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Great. So let's start from the very basics, Peyush. We've been talking about and working towards refreshing the culture at Lenskart earlier this year. But the culture at Lenskart, the way people work with each other, interact with each other, that gets, starts getting shaped from day one. So what are your views of the role of culture in an organization, especially yours?
I think in almost every organization, the role is quite big. It's just that the importance of it starts it gets to realization maybe after a little while when you become bigger. But somewhere in very early stage, from the very early stage, it's sort of happening. Yeah. You're not conscious about it, but almost every action, your way of working, especially of the founder, is having an impact of the way that organization will work. And that's why the role of the founder and the founding team becomes so important. And I think it's everything. It's like the core of the organization. I have seen organization, ourselves, and many other startups. I think every culture is different. It's like, every house is different. In India, with so many different, cultures in our country, you can walk into one house and realize, like if I'm a Marwadi, you can walk into my house and, you like smell food of a certain kind, language of a certain kind, conversation of a certain kind, energy of a certain kind. And then you could walk into another house and maybe they are too cool about certain things and certain houses are not too cool about. And I think this sort of has a very big impact on how things are shaping up, how you're taking decisions. And then that has an impact on how the organization will work. And then how the organization will work has an impact on what the organization will deliver. Yeah. So I think it's important. And after a certain while, it becomes even more important because right now, the culture is equal to the founder at early stage. But now, whether that is good, bad, ugly, and you want to keep it the same way, you want to translate, but you absolutely want, if the organization has grown, a lot of it to translate down, across, wide as well as, and that becomes a challenge. So, and that is where, this fancy term of culture comes in. But to be honest, for at least last 8 years, other than the last 2 years, every time everybody used to talk about culture, my mind used to just switch off. This is like another of that bullshit conversation that I don't get. And everybody says culture. But now, I begin to sort of realize the importance of it more in the last 2-3 years as the organization has grown both in terms of number of people as well as geography.
And a lot of leaders go through that realization. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's natural, I think.
Yeah. And Peyush, like you rightly said, right? Every house has a culture, every organization has a culture as well. But, if we look at Lenskart, there are many unique things about the organization as well. So, disrupting the eyewear industry, of course, but, other things like our omni-channel model or, the acquisition and integration of multiple technologies, including acqui-hiring, large teams, large technology teams as well. What are some of the challenges you faced in, shaping a culture in a context like this?
Honestly, we were not really doing this by design, right? It's not like, of course, I had read a lot of books and I was continuing and I had familiarity with this concept. So we did do a lot of work defining our DNA, purpose, vision, mission. And I think a lot of it helped. It helped more than we thought it would help. And today we realize how important it was. I think at Lenskart, or any other company, this sort of is happening on its own. Like I was very consumer obsessed and because of that, I probably found co-founders who were very consumer obsessed and then that translated down to my direct reports. And then because I was in those days also spending a lot more time all the way to everybody, in the warehouse to in the store, I think that was getting built slowly and slowly. We never were doing it. I was not doing it with an intent or a purpose that if I do this, this will happen, but it was sort of automatically happening. Yeah. So while we were consumer obsessed, there could be other things. So there are good parts and there are bad parts and there are ugly parts, right? Maybe if somebody is impatient, the one thing that can happen in consumer obsession is that you are so obsessed that when you see something wrong happening to a customer, you could also become very anxious, short-tempered, and that would also get then translated. Many years later, you will realize that is how everybody is operating. And then those things you need to modify every now and then, because some of them may not be sustainable beyond a certain scale of the organization. So consumer obsessed, I think the other thing was agility. I'm very, very impatient. And like I can pretty much see the Lenskart culture as a reflection of the core team members and myself, and it's a lot more visible now. Yeah, it's a big extension, and anybody who says it is not, I would not sort of believe it. But I think largely it is. Other big cultural value at Lenskart which has gotten built is this whole thing around energy, right? We're just about energy, and probably in this conversation you would get that I am already energetic, and I think so. How it is a reflection, again, it's coming out, and I think we have been always an energetic organization. We just don't like slow pace. We want things to be big, and that brings us to the next cultural value, which is 10x thinking. Right? So whether we'll get to 10x or not, but everything has to be 10x, right? Absolutely. And we don't want to think linear. We always want to think non-linear. And I think that it's the non-linear thinking. I still remember, we always used to say that 50% of India should be wearing our glasses, right? It sounds like a simple statement and it sounds dreamy and 10x.
That is huge.
Yeah, but it is, but it is beginning to happen now. I mean, if you go to Bangalore, almost 30% of people would be wearing Lenskart specs, right? So I think I think that this further defines the importance of culture. And now when I reminisce back and think about these things, it's sort of all you're able to join the dots. But during those first few years, you don't join the dots, right? You're just doing things because it's more important to get things done.
And Peyush, I'm almost thinking I have a trained eye to observe cultures, but even when I came in sort of experientially also, I genuinely felt all of these values come to life, especially the energy bit.
Yeah.
I came in, I could see there was so much happening in the company, there was so much buzz and people are doing so many things, there are multiple projects going on. And even if we look at you, right, you sort of wear multiple hats in the company. So you are the CEO, you're the co-founder, but you've also taken on recently the role of the chief people officer, which I feel is very unheard of for a CEO to do, right? So what were your thoughts about, sort of behind that decision? Why did you take that up?
I think at Lenskart, we are at a unique stage. I think for us, we are now about a $200 million, maybe $200 to $300 million business. And our aspirations now is to now get to 2030. And I think the more, based on all this joining the dots that I have done, and as much as I've read about some of the global companies, how they got where they got to, and when I look at our goals and our purpose of why we existed, why we started, it was beginning to become clear to me about, I would say, for the last 12, 18 months, that, this is where, the magic is going to happen. And what was happening to me was that while I was realizing the importance of it, but I would only end up spending maybe 10% of my time or 20% of my time to it. And I sort of thought that if I get my hands, I take the full accountability, I'll sort of get dragged into it, and my percentage of time spent that I'm spending on people and culture of the organization. And that is how it's played out, right? Today, I'm probably spending almost 50% of my time. That actually happened to me at an incident when we launched our business in Singapore. And the first, I went there, Amit went there, my co-founder. It all started with a bang. It was doing so well. And then we came back, right? And we were hoping things would just pan out as they were. And then we got one leader after another leader. But we felt that it wasn't, while it was okay, it wasn't disturbing. It wasn't like a bad business, but it wasn't happening at the pace and the way things happen at Lenskart. And then, in one of the conversations with a friend, I was discussing how should one go about international, why do organizations fail when they go international? And he mentioned to me it's the culture that doesn't get translated. And in the next 5 minutes, I called one of our oldest guys and I said, you're going to Singapore. right? And then we moved in there. His name is Mohit. And suddenly we started seeing a change in the energy of the place. Suddenly that customer obsession started kicking in. 10x thinking came. Ability to fail faster came, and that direction was changing. So business, and so it didn't really require like a mastermind. It just required somebody from the family to go and say, we will be consumer obsessed. Don't worry to take risks. Take decisions fast, and let's think big. Let's be clear that we will become the number one eyewear company in Singapore in the next 24 months, period. And now that because you've said it, it's gonna happen. Yeah, this year I felt that I should take it up. And I also was of the view that it needs a fresh perspective, right? I also was of the view that it needs a business perspective. I think a lot of times HR is seen as, the support function.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that transformation in saying that if it is this powerful, then it can't be support. One, just the fact that I'm leading it made it from a support to business, and I've not done anything for it. It's just a natural thing. Yeah, my face on it, and now it's like people are coming from HR team, but then I'm coming from the CEO. So I think it's a good thing. I also feel that people today is not something that, it's a side thing. We are living today in a very different world. And what Lenskart will be 5 to 10 years from now is not going to be dependent, at least my role today, is not as much important for me to tell them, okay, launch this new style or this new feature on the app. It is to create the ecosystem for people to be able to do much more than what I would be able to do myself. And that's why this becomes so much more critical.
So enable them to do actually the things that you would actually ideally like to do.
Carry some of the good things forward, stop some of the things that shouldn't be carrying forward, and continuously look at that picture and enable and empower. Yeah.
I like the journey you've made, Peyush, from sort of shutting down when somebody said culture to actually thinking of it as a strategic benefit now for the company, right? And I think, some of the ideas that you've thought of, for example, planting someone who embodies the culture in a completely different international office, and it just sort of organically grows and sprouts. What are some of the other things you're thinking of doing differently as a chief people officer? What are some of the aspects you really want to attack and, do differently, innovate about, specifically in this aspect?
Yeah. So first is, one of the first things that logically never made sense to me is, and it happened to me last year, and I'll give you a very real example. There was a business vertical of ours which didn't meet its target by almost 50%. And when I was looking at this performance report submitted by HR, the HR partner who was supporting that business had a phenomenal record. And I just felt that, okay, while I totally understand that the person did a good job, but to me that alignment wasn't there. Like, I couldn't just believe that if I am doing this role, my criteria or the way I should be measured is if Lenskart grows. Otherwise, it's really not worth me spending time on this. And from whatever I've seen in my past journey in Singapore and John Jacobs, this is more powerful than a feature or a prize in intervention. Like, this can change our game from a 300 million to a 30 billion. This is not about making 300, 600, right? So that is what I did. And I think it was a good change. So we have lesser people. Each person is allocated to a business leader, allocated as in they work with that business leader, they report to that business leader, and their only KPI is the performance of that business. And whatever the metrics of that business, which could be customer experience, revenue, EBITDA, employee experience. And if employee experience is a KPI for the business, then it is as much as a KPI for the business leader as much as it is for the HR leader. Right? So I think we made that change. It has been the best change that has happened to Lenskart. I think our complaints have reduced. I don't know how, I'm sure it has its own challenges. So far, it's been a good change. So I think aligning business and then allowing our leaders, HR partners, I still, we do these meetings where, we are discussing, and a lot of times I'm asking our HR partners, okay, tell me what's your plan for this quarter. And half of the time we don't know the revenue that the business that they're supporting has for this quarter. where they are at. And I remember doing a show of hands and asking how many of you think that your businesses will meet their goals for this quarter. And 8 out of 12 HR partners raised their hands no. And I think that's a good starting point, because if they realize that they're not, at least now that they're tracking the business for all the key metrics. And now they can work with the partner and say, okay, this is what we should be doing. This is where we need to bring an additional talent. This is the person we should be promoting. This is the person we should be replacing. This is the person, this is what our employees are unhappy about. They're demotivated. And if we don't do that in time, then we will not end up achieving what we set out to achieve. And I think that conversation is what was crucial in the whole scheme. Otherwise, what happens is, that conversation, what are we doing about our people? And all business leaders ask that. And my question to all of them today is, what are you doing about your people? Yeah. If you need budget, take budget. You need ideas, take ideas. But, everybody knows this saying, right? That people join and leave managers. Yeah. And it's true. But nobody really, everybody's like, okay, people are demotivated and everybody's looking at the HR space. What are you doing about it? And nobody's really asking, one key employee leaves in anybody's team, in every organization, especially at Lenskart, I've seen they're asking the HR partner, I don't know what is happening in our organization. Good people are leaving. Rather than questioning themselves, and they're questioning the HR partner or the HR, which side function, support. So I think that is one change. The other, I think, is about, talent. I overall feel that, at least for the goals for Lenskart, which is fast growing organization, and by fast I mean north of 30-40% year on year consistently over the next decade.
Oh, we are hyper growth.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, maybe I'm being modest there, but you need people with a certain mindset, right? I genuinely think that, and one of the things that I've also seen is that, if you want, especially for this fast growing goal, you cannot, one average talent in a set of 5 would bring the performance of the remaining 4 down by at least 30-40%. Yeah. Right. So increasing talent density is important. And in that, most important is how do you evaluate talent? And that I haven't figured out yet. So I can't answer that. But we're doing a lot of research. You are doing some research on it. How do we measure things about, and one thing we have realized is the best talent we hire is the one that fits our culture and our ways of working more than the person who have necessarily done what we want them to do, right? And in that aspect, I think particularly when I look at things from that aspect, how do you measure things like 10x thinking, fail harder, and those are the different questions that we're trying to answer. Yeah, for me, hiring to hui jayegi, it's gonna happen. The tricky and the part is that how can you ensure a lot of that is happening right? And right by not mean right talent. I think all talent is good talent, right to the fitment of what we want. And so we're running this race where people are coming and joining companies, and large organizations have this, then you have leaders and they are interviewing. And how do you bring a discipline in that recruitment process without slowing it down? Because you also have large numbers to do, but at the same time ensuring. And then, how do you change the mindset? Right? A lot of leaders just want to say, if they ask, if a recruiter was to ask them, what are you looking to hire? They say, hire me people from Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, Jabong, Lenskart, and Nykaa. Yeah, this is the brief. And hire me the content head. Right? That's the brief. And I think that's where the problem starts. That's where talent density and what you're bringing changes. You want to hire somebody to open 5,000 stores. You want to hire somebody the best to deliver, exponential growth. You need to say, okay, what do I want this person to do? What are the values I want? How will I assess? This is the easiest job. And the second part is that interview process, right? And in that interview process, there are 2 parts again. One simpler one, that how do you follow discipline, where people are actually punching in a feedback in a tool. Yeah. Right? And you can see what the last person saw and what I see, and what are the steps, and is there a discrete ref check, and are all the steps complete, or it's like, tomorrow I'll call, okay, I just came to Lenskart, by the way, all of you come here, and whether they fit in here or not, and you just bring an army of people here, and then when you leave, an army goes out. all these problems. And then how do you bring the discipline of recruitment, and then the whole thing around evaluation, how do you do this? So a lot of work here, I think, for us. But for me, I think few things that are becoming clear, right? We need hungry people more than anything, right?
I agree with that.
Lenskart as an organization today, if you want to become that, go to that next, 100x, we need people with hunger. I think what hungry people can deliver for organizations like ours is far more than what experience can deliver.
Yeah. And I think the best people even I've seen at Lenskart are people who are genuinely hungry to do more.
And who want to prove, who want to make a difference, who are serious about the purpose and making an impact.
Yeah. And for them, a job is not a job, right?
Yes. I think that is super important. I think if we can get that, and then they're honest, they have a discipline, they respect people, they have integrity, they're tech savvy, they get data. I mean, they don't need somebody else to run their Excels. They're great with people, they can collaborate. Give me those people and I can make them do anything. Trust me. Right? And I think that's what we need to figure out. That's what I call, I think we're beginning to get there in terms of some of those things. And I kept saying that, we want to bring with the right people with the right cultural values, and then we can make them do anything. And one way to make people do anything is to invest in coaching and training. The other is that, in young, and I also said we want to hire people, hungry people, right? And if you have hungry people, they would probably need coaching, mentoring to become people leaders, right? Because they may not have been there, done it, but they have all the right mindset. They are hungry, passionate, customer obsessed, 10x thinking, have the energy. And I wanted to create, and I got this idea actually from Indigo, which I'm a big fan of, because for the longest time, and I've got the man himself, Aditya Ghosh, who built the Indigo iFly Academy to come and help us. And I'm now spending a lot of time with him. And the idea is really to create this learning center. And so that we can, rather than just, bringing people from outside all the time, we start developing our talent internally at all spheres, all levels, to go to the next level. And that's when you create that, dream of, future organization. So I think, and another policy that we are rolling out now is that for any position at Lenskart, it's mandatory for you to roll out an IGP first. And if an internal person is selected, then the manager of that person cannot stop that person from, moving out, right? So, it is true, and I'll tell you my own learning experience. I have seen tremendous results out of our people who joined us very early stage, taking up different roles. What happens is, as the organization grows, this stops happening slowly, because everybody comes and everybody wants experienced people, everybody wants to get things done, and they want the people from their past organizations, and everybody wants to look out and want the person who has been there, done it. But 99% of the time, you can do a far better job for everything we just said right now, if they fit culturally, by just coaching. I think what happens in organization is, and we are still trying to solve this problem, is that, when organizations become large, you want to bring talent from outside for doing, big things, new things. And most likely, people who have been in the organization for some time are good cultural fits. Otherwise, they won't survive in the organization for long. If you can coach them, mentor them, give them a little bit of that training, they would do that job way better, 99% of the times, than anyone from outside. And I've seen this over and over again. So I think the academy is really to uplift and coach and mentor, and we're still figuring out. I think ideally, if you ask me, at a company of our size today, 50% of our new positions should be filled internally, in my view. with that coaching and academy. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're saying this, I'm almost thinking back to, Apeksha Gupta, who's just been made the CEO of John Jacobs. And she's someone who joined us, as a young leader. And now she's sort of gone up to that role. And I was speaking to her very recently. And she talked about how at every stage, she's a very hungry person as well, who wanted to do something. And she was like, right from the very beginning, I knew where I wanted to take John Jacobs. And she wasn't even sort of the head of the business back then. But even in that role, she wanted to take it there. And she said every stage, that hunger was fed through development, through support from leaders and people. Whenever she put her hand up, she was given the opportunity, and now she is where she is. And we didn't have to hire outside for our brand. We literally had someone internally grow up to that level.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Apeksha is one of our top performers, and the advantage is that I've seen her from the day she joined and how passionate and hungry she is about John Jacobs. So when we were looking for a leader, when Manan was sort of moving on to his next gig, there was a lot of discussion about getting somebody from outside, and I honestly didn't even start the search. And I was just trying to convince her to do this versus getting somebody from outside. And why I was more confident than some of the others is because I genuinely feel that the best companies in the world, the most transformative companies in the world, are not being built today, necessarily not being built by people with all the experience. They're being built by people who have that hunger, passion, and to build that. And in my own experience at Lenskart, when Ramnik joined, and who's now become a co-founder, he had joined us direct from, almost from college, many years back, as somebody who was working in our plant. And then today he's leading our product tech. One is plant, and then it's product tech, and he has held different roles. And I couldn't find, I am not even thinking of finding anybody for the next many years to do that role. And if Ramnik at any point decided to do something else, he'll be equally good, right? Yeah. And in no role of his, he has not been like a top performer. Yeah. So I think I've seen that play out again and again. So my confidence in this is higher. But yeah, I think Apeksha will do a fantastic job. Not even like I don't even an iota of doubt, right? When I told her to become the CEO, and I know a lot of people in the organization, their eyebrows were raised that what is Peyush doing? But that has happened. I'm used to that, and every time it has proven to be quite right, because, and I think that's what we need to make it happen more. The challenge that happens is that a lot of times, when organizations grow, how do you institutionalize these things? Yeah. Right? Because, a leader who has come from outside may not be aware of this practice. You haven't trained them. Like, why it is important to even talk about somebody like Apeksha is not necessarily to brag about it, but it is for, our 200 other leaders to say this is what they need to do, for people that are working for them and make them. If we as an organization can start setting goals, and this is what we were discussing with Aditya also, that by 2025, these many leaders need to come out of Lenskart. I think those are the kind of things we need to talk about. And well baked into the culture. Yeah, and I think it is also one of those things which has to become a way of working or rewarding and growing, and it has to be part of company goal. It can't be like a side goal.
No, absolutely. And leaders have a disproportionate influence on the culture. Yes. So, if we put the right people at the top, then it's going to cascade automatically. Yeah. Great. So, Peyush, you're also from a tech background, right? And now you've taken on the Chief People Officer role, and, you've gotten into HR. So, are you planning to techify that also?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's difficult for me to not to, right? It's so there are two paths, there's tech and data, right? So, suddenly our net promoter score specialist is working today on employee NPS, and our analytics team is now working on people analytics and creating these dashboards. I'm also planning to bring in like an engineering team in HR of people, and I think it's super crucial. I think what tech and data can do is they enable any business function to do better, right? And I think people can use that a lot. You know, my learning in Lenskart is when something is this important, get your tech team, build to solve the problems that you want to solve, and it turns out to be great. So yeah, absolutely, techify to the absolutely next level, to the extent it is possible. And it's ongoing. It's not something that I want to build a software and then sell it and it's over. It's like ongoing, solve problems, like we are doing for merchandising, like we are doing for customers. You know, here we are solving business problems.
So, and Peyush, you know, finally, what is the end dream? When will we know that we've arrived in terms of, you know, as an organization, as a culture? What is the future vision? What do you want to build?
Yeah, I think what we want to build is really transform the way people see, and you know, what we want to do is transform what eyewear does for you as an individual. But I think I would have done my bit in HR. We would have set it up to serve those billion customers that we want to, and it's sort of happening automatically.
Yeah.
Right, and it's almost like, you know, you're a farmer and, you know, you've prepared the land for it to now, you know, just
fertile to generate.
Yeah, generate.
Absolutely.
Then people are doing their work, and, you know, you don't really have to worry, and people are moving from one function to the other. All of them are rock stars, they're collaborative, they're working for a common purpose.
And they're building great teams below them also.
Yes,
you know,
and all this other, you know, things that are taking their time are all tech and automated, and everybody's really looking at the input goals, and people is a big part of that, and not just the output. And you fundamentally believe, if I deliver great customer experience, great employee experience, great spectacles, then nothing can stop us from meeting our vision of transforming the world.
Great. Thank you so much for this very, very insightful conversation,
Thanks,
Peyush.
Anupriya.
And I'm very excited to, you know, help the organization and help you in transforming the
now.
way people see. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.